Greetings. Welcome to ITR Live. I'm your host, Chris Hagen. We are back here in Studio 130 for another fun-filled, action-packed episode of Iowa's premier conservative podcast. I'm joined here in studio today with Chris Ingstad, and we are ready to talk about everything that's going on in Iowa politics. So welcome, Chris.
Hey, I'm really glad to be back.
Yeah, good. John's not with us today, so we're going to try and figure out how this works without sort of the
brains.
The brains of it all. And the ideological anchor that he is around here.
Yep.
So anyway, I guess since John's not here, I want to talk sports a little bit. It's always a challenge to get John on anything sports, but you're a basketball guy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think we've maybe even mentioned on the show before the dream team going back to the 92 Olympics, and really were outclassed the whole rest of the world.
Yep.
Okay. So I want you, with that in mind,
we were a better country than on a lot of fronts, Chris.
Yeah. Well, there's no question about that. I want you to think about the 2028 Olympics and Olympic flag football.
Yeah, saw that.
And Patrick Mahomes throwing to Justin Jefferson and Tyreek Hill against the North Korean secondary.
I'd love it.
Okay.
I'd love it.
What I kind of spoiled the whole thing with a question, but really we're gonna do this.
Well, that's the thing that I have not. Are we going to try to roll out NFL players for this?
Well, apparently the NFL is encouraging it.
Great.
And let's go.
So does that mean another 30 years, though, we're going to have a bunch of Eastern Europe standout quarterbacks and stuff? Right, because
it
was a cakewalk in the 92 Olympics. The rest of the world is caught up. So is this just open a door for the rest of the world to catch up to us, Chris?
You know what? I think American football is a great product. Let's showcase the world.
There's more. You know what? The back door, because you're, among other things, a soccer guy. Maybe the back door is we open up American football to the rest of the world. Athletes in other countries maybe move away from soccer to American football, and U.S. soccer can step up.
You know what? That is 4D chess right there.
Take the long game.
Yeah,
here.
no, that's good. Well, in your absence on the last episode, so I want to move on to business. We, John and I talked a little bit about ITR Local.
Yes.
And we rolled out the new and improved website for ITR Local. And ITR Local, I think at its the vision of that is more than just a website.
Yes.
But I want to sort of just kick it over to you. You got the ball rolling and all this. A lot of this was your idea. Just take it from the top on why we're doing this and how we've gotten to this point today on the ITR Local side. You know, what are we trying to accomplish here?
Well, we're doing it because the ITR Vice President, Dan Steele, said, people really care about property taxes. We need to do more with that.
Yeah.
And I don't think they understand the process. And so it's really Dan's idea, credit where it's due. And then as a team, we've put some things together. People are mad about property taxes. They're more mad about property taxes than any other sort of tax. And data would show that's justified because the amount of property taxes paid in Iowa keeps growing, and it outpaces any population growth. It outpaces inflation. That's not saying every community is bad, Chris, but as a whole, property taxes just keep going up. And I think what gets really frustrating for people is when so many local officials sort of claim it's not their fault or they're doing a great job. And some of them we read yesterday, even in the paper, Chris, some of them are still claiming to this just terrible idea that as long as we leave the levy rate the same, that's fine. What they don't realize or what they're not claiming is by leaving the levy rate the same, you are still spending way more money.
Right.
They don't want to acknowledge how much more they're spending. They're trying to claim this rate, which is just a function of algebra, is the same, and so don't blame them.
There is often the blame game of whose fault is it that your property taxes are too high, and you get everybody standing around a circle pointing at each other. And I asked John, I'm gonna just so we're very clear here at the front end of the episode, as everyone else involved in the problem points the finger at each other, whose fault is it? Why do we have these kinds of property taxes in Iowa?
It is the fault of the people who make and approve the budget, which is how much they will collect and how much, and listen carefully, it's how much they will spend.
Yes.
So
full stop.
So it's your city council, it's your supervisors, it's your school board. In fairness to school board members, A portion of that is formula driven, but there are also several levies where they have some discretion, right? So look at all of it. And the good news is all this information can be found at ITR Local.
Right. So to that end, and I kind of jumped in front of you a little bit there, but I wanted to make sure that we make that abundantly clear time and again, that it's not the assessor.
Nope.
It's not the legislature.
Nope.
It's not these formula. It is local government spending. All of those things flow downstream from how much money they set out to spend.
Yes.
Okay, good. So anyway, ITR Local.
Yes.
Now the new and improved website.
Yep.
And just remind us what's new about this. Why are we making a big deal out of this?
Well, we're continuing to make a big deal out of it because Dan's original point remains true. People are really frustrated with property taxes, right? And they don't like where it's going. And so the new website is in addition to be just, visually refreshed and updated and a little more appealing, we continue to add more and more information there. You can benchmark your city or county or school district spending among a bunch of different categories. So if something's out of whack or you don't like it, take a look. Oftentimes there's something that stands out and you go, man, why is the rest of the state at this level and we are so far beyond it, right? That's a good place to start. Yeah. It gives you a chance to compare your rates and your spending to other communities of your same size, right? I think it's fair to say that the needs of Davenport or Cedar Rapids may look very much different than the needs of like Red Oak or Clarinda, right? So you can get some benchmarking there, try to go apples to apples. Because ultimately, Chris, and maybe today we can also get to the debt piece of that. But there's a lot that goes into your property tax bill.
Right.
It's sort of your ongoing spending. It's your capital projects or your debt, right? It's all of these things working together. And rather than letting voters sort of fall victim to the maybe misleading claims that local officials make sometimes, right? And again, sometimes local officials just don't give them the whole story, or they've got one line or one thing they hold to, and all ITR Local is trying to do is give you a 360 degree view of your local government finances, how they're spending your money, and you can and then you're more informed to have those discussions. And ultimately, I would also say this for people: you should dig into that data and understand it as best you can, and use it all you want. It's also okay if you just tell your city council, "I don't care. I don't like where this is going.
That's right.
Figure it out." Right?
That's right.
I don't care your justification or rate or anything else. What I care is what it's doing to my family budget. And this is where local governments need to be a little more responsive to this.
Well, I'll tell you this. The flip side of that is the tax eaters have no problem and no qualms about going to the legislature or the city or whatever and asking for whatever sum of money for whatever need they with no concern at all.
Right.
For the taxpayer or whatever obligation. So you should equally have no qualms about going to those taxing entities as well and saying, I'm tapped out.
Yep.
No more.
Yep.
That is absolutely appropriate to say. And you don't need to try and understand the budget better than they do.
No.
But I want to say this, and I think John and I talked about this. The ITR Local and the website is data.
Yes.
It is at its core a dispassionate look at here's the numbers.
Yes.
Here's some benchmarks, and do with this what you think you should do. And it is to try and we're not trying to give you an analysis of every spending decision at the local level.
Far from it. We don't want to weigh in whether a given project. From time to time we may, but our goal is not to weigh on every budget or every bond issue or anything else around the state. It's to inform the locals of their own information.
What we really want is more Iowans engaged in the process at the local level.
And frankly, a lot of those local elected officials would say the same thing. They would welcome the engagement. They would welcome citizens weighing in. They would welcome citizens showing up.
Yes. And so we're trying to give some information and right there, contact your supervisor, your school board member, your city council, and start that conversation. And if in some of these cases, you have seen spending increases, there may be some very reasonable explanations for that. They may be needed to replace their wastewater treatment system or something. Maybe there's a reason that the line ticked up.
A school district may have doubled in size in the last 10 years. They need some more buildings.
Right. And so it's up to those taxing jurisdictions to explain that They know what's in there better than we do. We just want you to have the conversation with them to say, look, I see you guys are spending a whole bunch more money, or you're borrowing a bunch more money. Can you help me understand why that is? Because I'm paying a lot more. What am I getting for that? Yeah. And so we want to do that. We've already gotten some really good feedback on this new and improved ITR local website.
We've gotten formal feedback. Somebody's reached out, have reached out and shared stuff with us. But we've also sort of had organic feedback, right? Where we've come across some of our own information we put out there, right? And it's, and we see it and we go, well, boy, this person clearly gets it and they're making some good points. And that, I think, kind of segues to where we'd like to go next.
Right. And because one of these organic was, we've seen people that see not only the ITR local information, but some of the local bonding decisions that are coming up, and using ITR local to share that in their own communities, and seeing that happen, of people just picking it up is really great, and sharing it and whatnot. But there's an article on the ITR Foundation website about school district bond issues right now. We had a bigger one just about the total sum of the bond.
Yes. But which just remember, everybody, I think it's about $1.7 billion in bonds. So $1.7 billion of new debt is on the ballot on November 7th. And I think, Chris, by our calculations, about 75% of Iowans are going to be able to weigh in on at least one of those, in their local communities. So this applies to most of us.
Right. So we have $1.2 billion going to school districts, and a big chunk of that is Waukee, as you mentioned, a huge, very quickly growing district. But
I think about half of the school districts that are bonding, Chris, actually have enrollment that's declining over the past 10 years.
So 15 of the 34 school districts that are asking to borrow money have declining enrollment. 17 of the 34 have seen over a 40% tax increase over those last 10 years. And so there are some districts here where, I don't have that number right here, but they are declining enrollment and huge property tax growth. And yet they're going back again. Well, the one, asking for more.
The one that just sort of made its way back to us was Montezuma. And anybody listening, I don't know anything about what's going on in the Montezuma district specifically. So I'm not weighing in on it. I'm just using the example because it's the one
that we heard from.
Montezuma residents were kind of worked up about. And that is one where the enrollment is trending down. Not unique to Montezuma. That's a fair amount of communities that do that. And the property tax and the property taxes collected keep going up. And seeing those things visually depicted, it's an interesting thing. But some of that is just a function of rural Iowa, and here we go.
Right.
Where this particular resident is upset is there's $19 million of new bonds proposed. Okay. The first thing he takes issue with is the district, it might be trying to claim that it's tax neutral. Well,
because you made this point just a minute ago about the levy rate being unchanged. Well, here's how it plays out again.
So really, for a district to claim they're going to issue, millions of dollars in new bonds and be tax neutral, what they're really saying is some of our old debt is finally paid off, and we're going to quickly fill that back up with new debt. You're not going to notice a difference in your annual payment, allegedly, although they can't really hold that claim. That's like trading your car in at the car dealership, Chris, and you get a new, more expensive car, but they're able to sort of string out the payment, so your monthly payment is right. Yeah, that new car costs you money, but if all you're looking is your change in your monthly payment, that's a little bit misleading.
Yeah,
right, and that's really what's going on here when they say, because if you didn't fill that up with new debt, your taxes would actually go down.
Yeah, as frustrated as Iowans are with their property tax burden, you're canceling a property tax cut.
Yes,
for them.
Yes,
by extending this debt obligation.
Additionally, a couple of reasons why they shouldn't really make that claim, they being the school districts in this case, is property taxes or the rate for school districts are heavily dependent on enrollment and valuations. Right. Those are two big keys. You can't control or predict those things over the next, 10, 20, 30 years life of the bond. Right. Additionally, your management fund needs will fluctuate greatly, too. You cannot predict what those needs will be for the life of the bond. So to sort of claim that this will forever be tax neutral is false. Even if you accept the premise that, okay, we're just filling up, the old debt with new. And so that's one thing this gentleman in Montezuma is pointing out and thinks isn't right, is like, if we didn't build this new big project, our taxes could probably actually go down. The next thing he talks about is that, aside from saying, hey, the tough question, like how much new debt should we take on in a declining district?
Right.
That's a fair question to ask. Half of the issue is for athletic fields and I think a new students commons area. Now, again, not saying I don't know what Montezuma's baseball field looks like or where their students congregate. But in a time of high inflation, in a time in that district of declining enrollment, what are your true wants and what are truly wants and what are truly needs, right? So if the roof is leaking, we probably all agree we need to do what we need to do to fix the roof, right?
Yeah.
We might not need a new baseball field. We might not need a new student commons area.
On things like fixing the roof.
Yeah. I got lots of thoughts on that still.
This might be, and maybe I'm stealing one here, Chris.
Yep.
But let's not forget that schools actually have ongoing revenue.
I'm glad you brought that up.
And there is actually a good chunk of that ongoing revenue, which is specifically directed towards infrastructure and maintenance.
So yes.
So do you really need to go bond for it just to fix the roof?
So Sarah Curry's got an article that she's written. It's not out yet, but addresses this a little bit. One, any of these projects we take on, there's going to be some ongoing maintenance upkeep needs for it. And unfortunately, in many local governments, cities, counties, and school districts, right, they get the new thing and they maybe don't put as much money into maintenance as they should. Instead, they keep plowing their new dollars into new projects, new shiny initiatives, the next thing, right? Maybe neglecting some of the upkeep along the way. And we're all guilty of this in our own personal lives too, right? Yeah. We don't, get the new tires for the car or whatever, right? But at some point that becomes expensive and it's time to pay up. And so what they will do is they maybe neglect these things for so long, then it's a big issue. The roof is leaking, the HVAC has completely gone out. And now we need to take a big multi-million-dollar bond issue. And to your point, Chris, school districts and frankly cities, local option sales taxes, right? Yeah. Lost for cities, saved for schools. That money is supposed to be dedicated to infrastructure and capital needs so that you don't have to go bond and add debt. Instead, we've now got higher sales taxes and we're still going bonding for capital type things. Right. And additionally, schools also have the PEPL, right? The physical plant and equipment levy.
Yep.
So they have a couple different revenue streams that should be able to help them keep up with this. And instead, it's just more and including new debt. So,
no, that's right. There's a couple of things on here that I still want to get to. That there are. Back up just a minute. When one of the reforms that's been enacted at the legislature is November only bond elections, right?
Yep.
And so this is now we're heading into that new phase. There are still 5 districts that had ballot questions on the ballot in March in the old system. Yep. But this shows why we wanted to go that direction, is so that you don't have to just keep asking the question over and over and adding on to it. There were 5 districts that had this on the ballot in March. 4 of them failed, 1 passed. And so now they're back again asking for more.
Yeah, so the 4 districts that failed are back in November asking for more.
Right.
And the one that passed in March is back in November asking for another bond issue.
Yeah. So I'm because we don't want to just pick on one district. IKM Manning is got 7.9 million passed in March. I have no idea what that really, the scale of that compared to the size of their district. I expect it's still a pretty big chunk of money. That passed, and now they are back here asking for another $18.6 million in November. And you know what? It passed by a wide margin. So I guess if that school district clearly had high turnout and they really love debt for their school, and maybe there's something they absolutely need. So, but it is a declining enrollment district over the last 10 years, and enrollment's gone down almost 6%, and their property taxes have gone up 35%. And clearly they're going to keep going up even more than that going forward.
Can I try to sum this up?
Yes, please.
And maybe it's just a thought exercise on my part.
Yeah.
we are not against new schools. We're not against renovations. We're not against sports. What we are against is when local governments, right? Because cities and counties are guilty of this too. Who just use school districts. Just when they just keep trying to throw more and more debt onto the back of the taxpayers. Right. Oftentimes, I think the question that's failed to ask is this a want or is it a need?
Right.
Right. And then the other part is bonding really the right way to pay for this, or should we be devoting some other revenue streams to it, kind of all along the way?
I appreciate
what does your household budget look like if you just pulled out the credit card to pay for your groceries and your vacation and all your new clothes and right? Those things should be used a little more judiciously.
I agree. And I remind myself that we are saying, okay, folks in these communities, if they want this, they can vote for it and we'll sort of honor there's one here though, that I guess me personally, maybe not organizationally, I don't want to speak for the whole organization, that we can just be against, which is more pickleball courts.
I'm not sure that needs to go for bonding.
Because we have there are bond questions covering new pickleball courts in the state of Iowa. I'm personally just going to say that that's always a want, never a need. But there are 14 of these bond questions that do cover building or enhancing athletic facilities. And again, I just wonder whether, as a matter of policy, that's the right direction to go.
I'm very pro sports, but for a baseball field or softball field that at a school district is used at most about 3 months a year.
Yeah.
All things considered, is now the time that you should be taking on the debt to do that.
Yep.
Or could the baseball field make it for another, 5 or 10 years?
That's right. I agree completely. So, anything else you want people to know about ITR Local, what we're trying to accomplish, or
check it out? Dig down. Share it.
Yeah. Share the information. That's our job now. We built the website. We've got the data. And you mentioned Dan, who's done a tremendous amount of work to accumulate all that data. It's all publicly available. Census Bureau, Department of Education, Department of Management. It's all in, and you can link through and find it all there. But we want folks to get there and use it. And our job now is try and get that in front of as many Iowa taxpayers as we can. So share it.
Yep.
Share it as far and wide as you can. So, all right. Very good. I'm excited about it. I think you're excited about it. And I think we're making a difference, as evidenced by people that are already picking it up and sharing it themselves. So, all right. That's all the time we got for today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to tell your friends. Don't forget to leave us a glowing review. And with all of that, we will see you next time on ITR Live.